I'll be doing a series on all things water and how to build a better relationship with it. Stay tuned to learn everything you wish you knew about water and all the things you didn't know you needed to know. Can water go away? Can the Great Lakes go dry? Maybe you're having the opposite problem and flooding is what you're worried about. Both of these are related to how water flows through your life. In this video, I'll be discussing how water flows through your property and what you need to start thinking about to optimize that water that comes to you through storms. First, you need to know why it's important to move water into the ground beyond the need to reduce flooding. If you remove the groundwater from the Great Lakes region at the same rate it's being removed globally, the Great Lakes could go dry in 80 years. This has already happened in the world. The Aral Sea, that used to be a plush, fertile oasis, is now dry. It's associated with intensive agriculture and removal of groundwater. When I wrote my paper in 2015, it had depleted 80%, and as of this moment now, it's dry. Closer to home, around 1930 to 1940, Ontario experienced what we call the Dust Bowl. The soil became so dry, it was like a desert. It was from removing all the trees and then pulling all the groundwater out of the ground for intensive agriculture.
So why does this happen?
Properties, big or small, are like a bank. The water you put into the ground is stored and held for you for later use. The bank is deep in the ground, and we call them aquifers. But the water's not sitting still. It's moving. It's flowing underground to rivers, lakes, and streams. And it feeds them so they don't go dry. Groundwater is extremely important to our future. Water is also held in plants, animals, and bodies of water. It's stored in snow in the wintertime. All of these are ways for water to sit on the surface while it's being cycled. The idea is for most of the water in your area to enter into your aquifers and stay in your area. These are called catchments or watersheds. Unfortunately though, we build on the land and interrupt that natural flow. We cut down the trees so the water can't stay on the surface. We build driveways and houses so the water can't enter the ground. And then we plant very thirsty lawns. Lawns I'll get to in another video. To make it worse, any water that does make it off our property enters into the sewers, into metal pipes, and is whisked away to another place.
So what does this mean to you?
Take a look at your house and property. No different than the Great Lakes catchment, you have your own catchment. The water that falls on your property in your neighborhood should stay in your aquifers for your use. There are simple things we can do, but first, if you're going to have a relationship with water, you got to get to know it and understand its needs. See, when it rains, it's like a conversation the rain is having with you. If you don't listen, you'll never learn. Where on your property is the water puddling? Once you know this, follow it back and find out where the water's coming from. You're like an investigator, you're following the clues. Your area might be at the bottom of a hill, because water always flows from highest to lowest. Maybe there's hard surface and the water can't enter the ground, so it's going to the next best place. Flooding happens when the soil is saturated, when it can't take any more. And it can't go into the ground, so it sits on the surface and waits for its turn.
Water's very polite.
So you need to spread that water around. You need to move it from the place that's saturated to a place that isn't. Depending on the amount of water, you may need to move it over greater distance and give it more places to rest so it can quiet down. You can plant where the water is sitting, but make sure those plants are really water loving. Plants that grow near or on the banks of streams and rivers. Or you can move the water from the wet place to a garden that already exists. But remember two things.
Number one.
Give the water a path of least resistance.
Number two.
Make sure your pathway moves from higher ground to lower ground. Sometimes in building a path, I like to use larger stones like 3 to 5 inch granite stones or river rock or a combination of both. If you're moving the water, it doesn't have to be very deep, 2 feet, because you're moving the water across and into another place. If you want it to infiltrate the ground, it needs to be a lot deeper. It needs to be about 4 feet deep because you have to go beyond the frost zone. Put the larger stones on the bottom, then put on some cloth, landscaping cloth, and then the smaller stones on top for decorative. There's other things to know about that, like drainage pipes. We'll talk about that in another video. But if you want to get started, research French drains. It may take you several attempts to get it right. Just like a relationship, it takes time, effort, and patience. So wait for that next conversation, the next rainfall, and see if you listened intently enough and got it right. If not, no worries. Just find out what you need to do different this time. So that's your homework. Draw your property out and identify where the water's sitting, where the hard surfaces are, and where your gardens are. You don't need to fear water. It's the source of all life.
Not out to get you.
Mimicking how water moves naturally through the environment is what you want. If you engineer it too much, you're just going to have another messy machine that can break down. Till next time, love and respect.